Shulam Aleichem, everybody. We are up to Daf Chav Tes. We start from Tanu Rabbanan. It's around 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, around 15 lines from the top. Tanu Rabbanan. V'mei ochel yei ochel. Mebesar zevach shlamav. It's a pasuk in the Torah in Parshas Tzav. It talks about the shlamim. And really talks about nicer. A person leaves it over by Yom HaShlishi. Shlamim can only be eaten Shnei Yamim v'Layla Echad. And he leaves it over to the third day. So the Brisa says, Em ochel yei ochel mepsar zevach shlamav. Omer Rebbe Eliezer, the Heilige Tana Rebbe Eliezer says, Koif oznecha l'shmaya. Yeah? Lean your ear in so you can hear what I'm about to tell you. Even though the pashtus of the pasuk is talking about where a person eats bepoil b'yom hashlishi, noiser, he leaves it over to the third day. Rabbi Eliezer says, I'm telling you that the pasuk is talking about, it's not bepoil where he eats it on the third day, it's when he does the avoida and he's mechashev, he's thinking about eating on the third day. That's what the Torah is talking about. Fredi Gemara, how does Rabbi Eliezer know that? Maybe it's kipshutai. He's eating it b'yom hashlishi. The Gemara says, can't tell you that. Amarto achar shu kosher yachzer v'yiposel. Because the pasuk says that lo yerotza, right? It becomes possible. If we're actually talking about where the guy, the kohen, did all the avodas, shchita, Kabbalah, Haylach Azrika, all the avodas the way he was supposed to do it, right? And then he left over the basar for the third day. So you're going to tell me that Lamafreya, all the avodas that he did is possible, the carbon is possible, it's lo yerotza? Makes no sense. Ma'acher shu kosher yachzer v'yiposel. So must be talking about where he had a machshava lechol b'yom hashlishi, and that's why it passes the carbon. Amalei Rabbi Akiva, that's Uriah. Hein matzinu bezov v'zova. Right? We find a person who sees a bodily emission. Yeah, 2 or 3 times, or a woman when it's not Eis Nidasa, right? The Yud Aleph Yom between the Mei Nidasa, v'shemeres Yom keneged Yom, or she sees 1 or 2 days, not 3 days. Zava Gedolah, Zava Ketana. Okay, not our sugya. But what do you see from there? Rabbi Kiva says, Shem becheskes tahara, right? As soon as they stop seeing their bodily emissions, the Zava Zava, they start counting the days for tahara, right? Or Shemer Siyam Keneged Yom, as soon as she's toivel, and she becomes star, if it's still the same day, Kibin Shera'u, right? Sosru, they're soiser the tahara. Very interesting halacha, right? So you can see that even though you already became tahir, if it's still b'yoyim tvilasa, she's soiser the whole tahara, and she becomes tamei lamafreya. Af ata al tamal zeh she'af al pisha hochshar, even though the kohen did all the avodas, bekashris, but if he leaves the basar over to the Yom HaShlishi, shiachzer v'yiposel. That's Rekiva's taina to Rebbe Eliezer. How do you use the svara of kivin shehochshar yachzer v'yiposel? That's the svara that you're using to interpret the pasuk for machshava b'shas avoida, as opposed to leaving it over after the avoida to Yom HaShlishi. I have another case in the Torah where I'm afraid it becomes puzzle. So you can actually learn the pasuk kipshutai. Amalei, so Rekiva rei oimer hamakriv. Nah, it says hamakriv. It says in the pasuk hamakriv oisoi. Right? What does makriv mean? B'shaz da krova, b'shaz da avoida, b'shaz da krova nifsel ve'ein nifsel b'shlishi. We're not talking about where he followed through taka and he left it over b'shlishi, b'poil. We're talking about a machshava b'shaz ha krova. Maybe the Torah is talking about the kohen who's makriv. I didn't know the carbon becomes puzzle. Maybe the kohen becomes puzzle avoida. It says oisoi, right? Oisai is extra, which is teaching you that the machshava passes the carbon, not the kohen. Why does it say the word oisai? He darshans the extra word oisai by shlomim here, by machshava lechol chutz lasmano. He darshans it for a different halacha. It says somebody makes a neder to bring a carbon. The halacha is he has to bring it within shalosh regalim. Past shalosh regalim, he's over about the acher. It's a lav. So Gemara says, Yochel af ma'acher nidre b'lo yiratza. I would have thought once he brings it after shalosh regalim, after balta acher, once he's over balta acher, that neder, that carbon that he's going to bring, is not mechaper on him l'fnei Hashem, because he's bringing ba'avera. He's bringing balta acher. Talmud Lemer, no, oisai b'lo yiratza v'enam acher nidre b'lo yiratza. Oisai is a miyat. It's only this. What's this? Somebody brings a carbon pigul, right? Had a machshava b'shas avoida. That kind of carbon is lo yaratze. It passes the carbon. But a carbon that you brought in violation of balta acher, that's still yaratze. Others say, assuming the achedim over here is Rabbi Meir, end of Hoyrius, you know the story why Rabbi Meir was called achedim, says the Gemara, achedim oimrim. How do I know that the pasuk is talking about b'machshava la'achol chutz l'zmano, and not where he's b'poil la'achol chutz l'zmano? Because there it says lo yechashev b'machshava u'nifsal ve'in nifsal b'shlishi. Talking about lo yechashev, the word lo yechashev is extra because it already says lo yiratze. What does lo yechashev mean? Right? So yechashev means machshava. Yeah, he passed the machshava, and not because he's eating it b'poil. Ben Azai asks the Gemara, Ben Azai, who learned the word oisai to be mamayit, a carbon of balta acher, that's not bichlal lo yerotze, asks the Gemara, Ben Azai the bezevach hakosav v'daber v'nedaber b'koyin menole. How's he going to know that oisai it means the carbon itself as opposed to the koyin? He uses oisai for a different limud. He uses oisai to be mamayit, a carbon of balta acher, that it's still yerotze. Either you could say he learns it from Acherim, because Acherim says lo yechashev, teaches you b'machshov as opposed to the bailam eating it b'poil b'yom hashlishi. So obviously we're not talking about the kohen, because why would the kohen become posel if the bailam eats it b'yom hashlishi? So it must be we're talking about the carbon, and the carbon is posel, but not b'machshava, but not if he eats it b'yom hashlishi, right? The contrast of the achila b'shlishi and the machshava b'shas hakrova can only be if the subject is the carbon. But if the subject is the kohen, it makes no sense to have that as the alfus of lo yechashav, because the kohen wouldn't be subject b'chlal to become possible if the bailam eats it b'shlishi, because why should he? He's not doing the Aveira. Gemara says, or it says the word lo yiratza. Lo yiratza is the mashmoyos of lo yiratza is that it's talking about regarding the carbon. Lo yiratza, the carbon is not meratza, and it's not a lashon that fits for the kohen who's makrivet. Okay, so Al Kalponim, Ben Azai has two options how to learn out the idea that the pasuk is passeling the carbon and not the kohen who's makrivet. Okay, now the Gemara asks Ben Azai, Oisoi b'lei yiratza ve'im v'acher nidr b'lei yiratza v'acher nafka. Is he really learning the halacha that Oisoi b'lei yiratza, but balta acher is still yiratza? V'acher naf d'acherim nafka. The Tanya we learned in the Braisa the Tanya acherim oimrim yochel yei b'choir. I would have thought a bechor, right, has to be given to a kohen. The kohen is makrivet toich shnasai, which is before it passes its first year, its first birthday, first year of its life. Okay, so how do I know if he wasn't makriv the bechor b'toich shnasai? It's ibra shnasai. How do I know that it's not kipsula hamikdash. I would have thought it's kipsula hamikdash, and like a carbon that has a mum, and you can't be makriv anymore because it's avrish nasoi. The apostle and it's apostle akrova tamad loymar nishtazoi. V'chaltuf ne'Hashem lekecho masa degoncha. Oh, and it says over there masa degoncha and b'chayro is b'karcha v'tzanecha. Makish b'char l'maser. Same pasuk b'char and meiser. Ma meiser and nifsel b'shana lechaverta. Right, even though you have meiser from last year, you can still bring it up the next year to Yerushalayim and eat it there. So it doesn't become possible if it's aver shnosai and you could still be makar on the mizbeach. So the Gemara says, what do you see from here? So you see from here that icher karbanos, even though you bring the bechar past its allotted time aver shnosai, it still doesn't become possible. And l'chayri you can learn bata acher from bechar, just like bechar. We know once it's avrish shnasai, hagam it's not ideal because you have to bring it to shnasai. Still, if it's avrish shnasai, you could still bring it because it's learned from Meiser, and it's still yerotza, it's still bechlal yerotza. So too, balta acher, you should have brought it within shalosh regalim. You didn't bring it within shalosh regalim, and it's still yerotza. So why do I need the pasuk of oisoi below yerotza? I can learn it from Bechar, which is Hukash Lamaiser. So the Gemara now hits Bechar. I wouldn't have learned Balta Acher of all the other Karbanas from Bechar. Why? Because Bechar might be different. Lav Baratzo. Really, it's not coming to be Miratza. It's not coming out to Anaveda, or you weren't Noiderit. Bechar, naturally, it's born, and it has a status of Kachim. Av Kachim, the Bnei Artzah, it's Miratza for the Bailam. I would have thought once it's brought ba'avera after you're over balta acher, it's not maratz anymore. Kamash malan oisoid to teach you no, it's only a carbon that was nifsal b'machshova of chutz lezmanoi. That's lo yerotza, but not a carbon of balta acher. Really, do you need oisoid from there? Torah says in the parasha balta acher v'hoy b'chachet. Mashma from there, a diak v'loy b'karban chachet, that the carbon doesn't become possible even if you're over in balta acher. It's a diak dafka you did not aver, but not the carbon. The carbon could still be makriv. But now say no, you can't learn from there. It's you and not your wife. Your wife is not responsible for this one. Oh, usually he gets punished with the death of his wife. Yeah, I'm not sure why his wife should be responsible for this. But either way, if a person owes money and he doesn't pay back, his wife ends up dying before she's supposed to, prematurely. So I would have thought that the Aveda of Balta Acher is also nichlal on this einish. B'hayov and Balta Acher nami Mesa, his wife dies, Kamash Malon, that no, it's Dafka B'cha v'loy be'ishtecha. So therefore he can't learn from B'cha the halacha that the carbon doesn't become possible, carbon Balta Acher doesn't become possible, and that's why you need it from Oisai. Achirim Oimrim, we said, Achirim say, Machshava Nifsal, Ve'ein Nifsal Bashlishi. It says, a makriv Oisai lo yechoshev loy. The words lo yechoshev is extra. It's teaching you that b'machshava nifsal ve'nifsal shlishi stalk upon him. It's different makar of how I know that the pasuk is talking about a machshava because a makabas lo yechashav lei. So Gemara Sachin b'machshava nifsal ve'nifsal shlishi v'Rabbi Eliezer lo yechashav me'avad lei. Rabbi Eliezer that learns it from lo yerotza. How's he going to learn? What's he going to do with lo yechashav? Lots of makriv. What's he going to do? Leichashev. But boy, look at their biyanai. Don't Rabbi Yana menayla machshava shematzi zumazu. Shenember leichashev leyarev b'machshava sachiris. Biyanai says that let's say you have machshavas pigel, b'shas kabbalas adam, and then later by halacha you have another machshava, but it's not pigel. Let's say it's chutz l'mekaymai. If you're ma'arev another machshava by one of the other avodas with a machshavas pigel, lo yechashev lo yarev b'machshava sachiris, and if you are ma'arev b'machshava sachiris, then it doesn't become pigel. It's allowed to give you malchus if you have a machshava you're not supposed to have b'shas hakrova that you taka get malchus. It's a machshava chalav shem b'maisa and loiken olav. It's a beauty who says lav shem b'maisa is taka loiken. Zug the heilige Mishnah weiter. Ze haklal. This is the klal. Mishnah is being koiveya klolim in the machshava of chutz l'zmanim, which is pigul, and it's a chila. It's a chila. Anytime you eat it, it's kares. To the machshava of chutz l'mekayma, which is just puzzle. Ze haklal. Kol shoyich v'mekabel v'mahalach v'azoyrik lechel dav shtarka lechelak dav shtarka lahakter k'zayis chutz l'mekayma puzzle v'ein by kares. Chutz l'zmanim pigul v'chayom l'karetz b'vatshi yakre v'atakim etzvasi. Basically, the Mishnah is defining a difference between chutz l'zman and chutz l'mekayma. Chutz l'zman and machshavas chutz l'zmanoi becomes pigul v'yesh by kares v'chayomnol of kares if you eat a kazayis of basar from a carbon that became pigul, and if it's chutz l'mekayma, then just a machshava chutz l'mekayma v'shas hakrava, it's possible v'ein by kares. Okay, but the Tanai is abavat sheyakriv hamatir kemitzvasai, that the rest of the avoidus, right, has to be kemitzvasai. So you had a machshava of chutz l'zmanoi, let's say in the beginning of the avoidus. So the halach is you have to at least do the rest of the avoidus b'shtika, that you shouldn't be ma'ariv any other machshavas. Keitzat karav mat kemitzvasai shachad b'shtika kibul dama v'holach v'zorak chutz l'zmanoi. Let's say mamish had the shchita without a machshavas psul, and then you did kabbalah loch and zrika with the machshav of chutz l'zmanoi, or sheshachat chutz l'zmanoi, or you shechted chutz l'zmanoi. The kibul v'aloch v'zorak b'shtika, you didn't have another machshavas psul. Or sheshachat the kibul v'aloch v'zorak. Yeah, chutz l'zmanoi. You did all four avodas chutz l'zmanoi, and you didn't mix in any other kind of machshavas. Zehu shemakriv amater kemitzvasoi. In other words, all you did, either you had one machshavas chutz l'zmanoi, it was b'shtika, and the other avodas. Yeah, you had one by one of the avodas, the other three you had nothing. Or all four, you had the same machshav chutz l'zmanoi. That's makriv amatek mitzvasai. Keitzad loy karav amatek mitzvasai. What would be a case where the pigel isn't chal because you weren't mater, you weren't karav mater kemitzvasai? Let's say shachat chutz l'mekayim kibul v'aloch v'zorak chutz l'zmanoi. You had conflicting machshavas. Yeah, in one part of the avodah you thought of chutz l'mekayim, and the other part of the avodah, parts of the avodah you thought chutz l'zmanoi. Shachat l'manei kibul v'aloch v'zorak chutz l'mekayim. Oy sheshachat v'kibul v'aloch v'zorak chutz l'mekayim. Yeah. Either you did one of the avodas chutz l'mekayim, and the others you did chutz l'zmanoi, and also a pesach v'chatas sheshchat nishlo l'shmon. Yeah, you shechted shlo l'shmon. V'kibul v'aloch v'zorak chutz l'zmanoi. Oy shechut l'zmanoi v'kibul v'aloch v'zorak shlo l'shmon. Oy shechut v'kibul v'aloch v'zorak dama shlo l'shmon. Or you did one of the avodas shlo l'shmon, and the rest you did chutz l'zmanoi. Zer shlo korav matek mitzvasa, because you mixed up the machshavas. You had a machshava by one of the avodas chutz l'zmanoi, the other ones you had shlo l'shmon or chutz l'mekayim. That doesn't work. Okay, that is the shita of Tanakam and the Chachamim. Says the Mishnah, lechel kazayis bachutz, kazayis lamachar, or kazayis lamachar, kazayis bachutz, ki chatzi zayis bachutz, kazayis lamachar, kazayis lamachar, kazayis bachutz. Pasal ve'im bekaris. Again, even if you did one of the avodas, and in that one of the avodah, you thought maybe kazayis is this way, chutz l'zmanoi, and the kazayis chutz l'mekayimoi, or chatzi zayis and chatzi zayis, it's pasal ve'ein boy karis. It doesn't work. Yeah? That is doesn't become pigul, but at least it's puzzle. It's mitzvah to puzzle, but not pigul. You don't have a shear to make it pigul, but you have a shear bein shneim to make it puzzle. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, B'Yehuda's cholik, and he says zeh klal kol shemachshavas hazman kodma lemachshavas hamokoim. Yeah, whatever comes first, that's kriveya the iser. If you had a machshava chutz l'zmanoi first, and after it's chutz l'mekayim, then it goes pigul v'chiyavon, of course, even if you have chutz l'mekayim after. The machshavas hamokim kodma machshavas hazman pasal ve'ein b'karis, because chutz l'mekayim is kiveya the psul, and you can't make it pigul anymore. V'chomer mezev zeh pasal ve'ein b'karis. The Mishnah repeats. Chachamim argue that you need to turn it pigul. You cannot have another machshava by any of the other avodas of chutz l'mekayim. Says the Mishnah Messiah, lechel k'chatzi zayis, or lahaktir k'chatzi zayis. What if you're mechashev to eat from the carbon, the basar carbon k'chatzi zayis, chutz chutz lemekoimoy, chutz lezmanoi, or lahaktik chatzizayis, bepsol chutz lemanoi chutz mekoimoy, kosher, it's kosher in achila aktara mitztarfin. Yeah, there it's totally kosher because achila and aktara cannot be mitztarf to shir kazayis to passel a carbon. Okay, stop over here.